From a baby seal who took a nap on a couch in New Zealand to an alligator who started poking around in the kitchen looking for dinner, here are 10 bizarre, scary, and sometimes hilarious stories of animals invading people's houses. Number 10. Raccoons in Toronto. In 2019, a wildlife control company in Toronto was called in for an emergency. A family of 11 raccoons was found camping out in a home that was under construction. All work had stopped on the house in question, as laborers didn't know how to proceed. They didn't want to try to kill the animals themselves, and couldn't keep going while the animals were there. Of course, the Gates Wildlife Control Company peacefully pulled the intruders out of the home, after discovering that a back door had been left open overnight. Of course, being smart raccoons, these furry creatures realized that a house was the perfect place to start building a nest. Once workers started prodding them and encouraging them to move on out of the house, they left without much protest. I guess in Canada, even the raccoons are polite. Number 9. Baby seal in New Zealand. Imagine waking up one day to see a baby seal snoozing on your couch. That's exactly what happened to one homeowner in New Zealand. Apparently, this cold creature saw an opening in her cat door and made himself right at home. Of course, even cute baby seals are known to be potentially violent if they feel alarmed or agitated. It's best not to get too close, but I can understand why someone might just want to go give this kind of friendly-looking animal a squeeze. After all, they're so cuddly looking. Regardless, after a few hours hanging out on the couch, it was determined that he really did have to be taken away to be reintroduced to his natural environment. As much as his temporary host might have wanted to adopt him, it simply wasn't possible. Hopefully now he's doing better and feasting on fish rather than sitting like a couch potato. If a baby seal wandered into your house, what would you do? Would you try to adopt it? Would you try to train it? Tell me your plan in the comments below. Then remember to subscribe to The Biggest if you haven't already for more amazing videos just like this one. Number 8. Cobras in India. More than 100 young cobras hatched and started crawling out of a nest in a house in a village in central India in mid-2020. Somehow there was a nest filled with cobra eggs under the floorboards of this house, and one night, the family that lived there started seeing baby cobras everywhere. The Kushwaha family had to evacuate their house while the father sat for days in a chair, watching and waiting to capture and remove the babies from their home. Unfortunately, baby cobras are more dangerous than adults. Why? They have the same amount of poison in their bodies, but are immature and don't know how to conserve their toxins. Therefore, they deliver a full dose of venom with every bite, so if you get bitten by a baby cobra, you'd better be near a hospital. Even after catching over 50 of these babies under their floorboards, at least 5 new ones crawled out every day. And with lockdowns from coronavirus making it hard to find a hotel, this situation quickly became unlivable for the family. The local villagers teamed up with India's forestry department to try to locate the origins of the nest and get all these dangerous creatures out of the house as fast as possible. Number 7. Python in Queensland. When you open up your refrigerator or pantry, you generally expect to find your snacks, maybe a few beverages, or some ingredients for baking. You don't expect to find a live animal, let alone an angry python. That's exactly what happened in April 2020 to a woman in Queensland, Australia, which has a large tropical area full of dangerous reptiles that can wander into houses. It's not uncommon for people to come home to a giant serpent sitting on their porch or trying to find its way inside and look for food. The woman had to call a snake catcher, who casually bickered with the snake and fought to get it to leave the house peacefully. After a tough battle that took several minutes and almost had the snake take a bite out of the catcher, he was successfully transferred into a safe container and brought back to the wild where he belongs. Number 6. Smoker encounters tiger. This might be the funniest, most bizarre incident of an animal home invasion I've ever seen. A person in Houston, Texas was entering an abandoned home in 2019 in the hopes of smoking some marijuana in peace. That's right, they wanted to light up and not get caught, but something went terribly wrong. In the abandoned house they picked as their hanging out spot, a tiger was making his home. When they called the police thought that they were hallucinating. Of course, it makes sense. What kind of delinquent or lunatic reports a live tiger in a cage in a house they were trespassing in? The dispatcher asked if they were under the effects of the marijuana when they made the call, but apparently not. It was all true. The police entered the home and found a small tiger in a cage in the house, hungry and alarmed. The cat was tranquilized and taken to an animal sanctuary without much trouble. It was eventually named Tyson, after Mike Tyson, who kept a tiger as a pet himself and appeared in the wild comedy The Hangover. Actually, The Hangover is definitely a film where this bizarre situation could have realistically been part of the story. The police were surprisingly far more concerned with finding out who bought the tiger and kept it in that house illegally than they were with the would-be trespasser. Now that the tiger is safe, the individual who reported finding the animal was not charged with a crime, but learned a valuable lesson. Don't wander into random houses. You never know if the house you thought would be a quiet place for mischief actually turns out to be a tiger's home. Number 5. Mountain lion in California. Deep in the heart of Central California, near the famous Yosemite National Park, an elderly couple encountered something absolutely terrifying in 2019. That's right, one evening they were sitting in their living room with the front door open when a mountain lion just bounded into their house. I don't know about you, but I sure wouldn't leave my front door open if I lived in an area where mountain lions wandered through the neighborhood. Apparently, it was chasing a cat right into the house and got frightened by the people who were now far too close for comfort. It ran into their bedroom and somehow locked itself in there. That's when the couple called the police and the sheriff came to their house after hearing their confused and panicked voice on 911. The sheriff and his deputies broke the bathroom window and used bait to convince the animal to jump out the window and head back out into the wild. The local wildlife board gave people the following advice in case they ever encounter a mountain lion unexpectedly. You're supposed to make a lot of noise, act strong and stand tall, maintain eye contact with them so they don't think they can surprise you with an attack, and never run away or they'll chase you. Slowly back away without losing eye contact or making sudden movements. If you do get attacked, you have to fight back by striking the lion's face as hard as possible. But the best solution is to not get into this situation in the first place. Keep your door closed if you're staying somewhere that has large wildlife. Number 4. Crocodile in Kerala. A family living in India woke up one morning in December 2020 to find that a crocodile had taken up residence on their porch. The Shahjan family found this massive reptile lounging right by their front door at 5 a.m. and immediately barricaded themselves into the house to try to avoid getting on his bad side. They hoped he would wander off, but he didn't. They had no choice but to call their neighbors and wildlife officials to help them. Local residents tried to convince the crocodile to leave by poking it with a long pipe, but that didn't do much. The croc simply retreated under a sofa and snapped at anyone who came too close. He was in his fortress and wouldn't leave. This monster, who measured in at a staggering 10 feet, was probably looking for food when it got up out of the river and started wandering to nearby houses. Officials have warned people living near the Chalakudi River that swimming is a horrible idea because of the risk of crocodile attacks. Eventually, officials used rope to secure the crocodile and drag it back to the river where they released it. Crocodiles are not friendly creatures, and if you ever see one, you need to stay far away. If you go somewhere that has a lot of crocs, make sure you carry a weapon for defense and bring a friend or two for backup in case of emergency. Number 3. Monty the Python. Of course, this hilariously named snake got into some totally wacky trouble and even ended up getting rewarded at the end of it. Monty, a 100-pound snake who lives in Mission Beach, Queensland, Australia, had been camping out in the roof of a house for a full decade. That's right, 10 years with a freeloading snake hanging out above the rafters. Can you imagine? Then, in 2016, Monty was discovered lounging around in the living space of the family's house. Apparently, a family friend almost fainted when she encountered the beast as she was walking towards the restroom. That was when it was time for him to get booted out and live on his own. Snake catcher Dave Goodwin wrangled this 17-foot monster into a giant bucket after coming close to getting bitten a few times. Unfortunately, Monty was so big that he couldn't be captured with a simple pair of tongs or a hook on a stick, so Mr. Goodwin had to get creative in snatching him. He had to grab the snake by the neck with his bare hands, which caused the snake to go completely crazy. It tried to wrap itself around his arm and crush it. I would have been scared to death, but eventually, the snake was transferred outside. Where did he go for his next phase of life? He was put in a sewage pond nearby that contained far too many rats. That means he's going to be living large and eating well for the foreseeable future as he gets rid of the rat problem. Honestly, it sounds like he got quite an upgrade in living circumstances, if you ask me. Number 2. Monitor lizard in Thailand. A young 24-year-old man in a town in Thailand, south of Bangkok, came home to his front door to see someone there already. It wasn't a package thief, but something strangely far, far worse. A monitor lizard, known as a dangerous beast in Southeast Asia, was waiting at his porch like it was expecting to be let inside. Of course, like any young person, he decided to catch a few pictures of the monster and post them to Facebook. The lizard is about the same size as a small human, and when it slapped its tail against the outdoor table with a resounding thud, everyone screamed in terror. A brave amateur reptile handler had to use a piece of rope to entice the lizard to move away from the house and go back to the forest. I would have used treats like fruit to get it to follow me, or just called the police and let them handle it. Of course, what if this beast had learned to open the door and entered the house? Everyone would have been in danger. I might invest in a second outdoor gate or put up a fence if I were this family. Apparently, they live near a mangrove forest where lots of these terrifying creatures spend their days. I wouldn't want to end up being dinner for the lizards. Number 1. Alligator in Clearwater. In May 2019, an alligator was caught in the Tampa Bay area after it wandered into a family's house by crashing through a window placed low to the ground. What did it want? Based on the fact that it was found writhing around in the kitchen, it might have smelled food and been quite hungry. At 11 feet in length, it must have had a serious appetite. The fact that it was willing to burst through glass to get into the house means that it was probably desperate to find food. But instead, it found itself in an encounter with local police and animal trappers. The wildlife experts recommend that if an alligator breaks into your home, stay far away and call emergency services. If you're getting attacked, though, you have to fight back. If you punch the gator in its nose or try to poke it in its eyes, it may let go and give you time to scramble away. It makes me wonder if pepper spray works on alligators the same way it works on mammals, though. Those were some of the most incredible stories of animal home invasions. Which one had you the most surprised? Tell me in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe and come back soon for another video. See you next time.